Good evening, my name is Rob Pollard. I'm the developer for Sojour, the solo VTT. This is the fourth tutorial video, and in it we're going to talk all about map tokens basically and how Sojour models them. So let's open up Sojour. I don't actually have anything in mind now, so we're going to create a rule set and everything else. Now if you want more information on how to create your own adventures and so forth, there's a link to the top right to one of the earlier tutorial videos on that. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a traveller rule set for Mongoose Traveller, a very good role-playing system. Now Sojour actually comes with a traveller calendar called the Third Imperium, so we can import that in now. And what we're going to do is create the rule set for that. Now, under here, well, there's several important things we need to set up, and we've already discussed these in previous tutorial videos. So we need to set the measurement system, traveller's metrics, we'll leave that in metric, and then you need to set up your characteristics. So characteristics in terms of tokens, all they are is little, I guess you can call them health bars, to keep track of various bits and bobs on your characters. And in Sojour you can have up to 4 per token, but you can group them into sets, and the idea being that you can have one set of characteristics, I don't know, for a spaceship, another set of characteristics for maybe animals, and then another set for player characters and so forth, and it just makes it easy. The idea being that in your when you're creating your characters and pulling the tokens in, you just pick the relevant set of characteristics. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the characteristic system, simply because I have a video all about that, and you can see that one top right. I will cover the basics. So in Traveller, the 3 characteristics you want to keep track of are strength, dex, and endurance. Let's get those in now. STR for abbreviation. I like to use a different set of colours for that. And we'll add 2 more. So that's dexterity. Whoops, my typing's appalling, sorry. Dexterity. That's dex. I should really be using tab, it's faster, but I guess I would have it die hard. And endurance. Because in the Traveller RPG, these 3 characteristics are related. And I said the only reason I'm going over characteristics right now is because you'll see them on the tokens. So let's make that purple. Now in Traveller, I suppose it depends which version. In Classic Traveller, these 3 are all in hexadecimal. In Mongoose Traveller, they tend to be in the decimal system, but I guess I like things in hex, so let's go hex for that. And in Traveller's case, all 3 of them contribute to whether or not your character dies, so let's just tick all 3. And that's all we need to set up. Like I say, I'm not going to go into too much detail on that, simply because I have a whole other video on the characteristic health bars, and the system is very flexible. So we have our rule set. What I'm going to do now is create a quick campaign. I'll name this after one of my current campaigns. And Traveller uses the Third Imperium calendar. And great, we're ready to go at this point. We can pull in maps and so forth. So before I go into the characters, I'm just going to put in a map, because in general you can't see your tokens unless you have a map to drag your tokens to. So we'll pull a map up. And again, we'll use a feature that Sojour has, and that's it can pull maps directly from your scenario PDF, so you don't have to buy these twice. It's quite a handy feature. This is Mission to Mithril from Mongoose Publishing. Excellent adventure, and in the link top right, it goes to a video I made on how to solo these kind of adventures, and I actually give you some examples directly from this adventure, and I found it a really excellent adventure to play. So we're going to pull in this map, and directly from the PDF, and the way Sojour does it is we can take a screenshot basically by going add map from screenshot, and then you just click that in. Just a bit rough. Let's call it Mithril Downport. So I'm not going to go too deep into the mapping side simply because we've had other videos cover that. So this is our map. We're going to do one more thing to it, or do I? No, I'll do that one more thing later on because I want to demo a few things. So that's the map. Let's talk about tokens. So in Sojour there are three kinds of tokens. There are tokens that are classed as campaign assets. There are tokens which are actually your characters and they appear up here. And then finally there are tokens that are on the token palette and they tend to be your mobs. And you're probably thinking, why did I go to the hassle of creating three different kinds of token? Well, what is the point? And it's a good question, especially when I show you them in detail. You'll notice that the user interfaces for all three are actually almost identical. But there are reasons why I created three different types of token. And you can actually go to Sojour's manual by clicking this button here, and I'll take you straight to that particular page. So this is a page from the manual, and this table, what it does is it shows you the three different kinds of tokens, although rather confusingly I call the tokens in the token palettes tokens, even though in reality all three of them are actually tokens. So the big difference is, in terms of, I guess, playability, is whether or not they're unique. So unique tokens, if you drag them to the map multiple times, all you do is move the token on the map. Whereas tokens where you can have multiple instances, if you drag them multiple times to the map, you'll get multiple versions of that token with an incremented character, and I'll show you that later on. So basically characters can only be unique. Tokens, you can drag those on as many times as once, so I don't know, you might define a particular monster, and if you drag it 4 times to the map, you have 4 of those monsters ready to go, and I'll show you that. And then campaign assets, they can be unique or single, it's up to you to define that, and I'll show you that later on. Only characters appear on the pane up here. Characters can have character sheet document templates, I'll go into a little bit of that. And characters are the only ones that can be deactivated, and I go into that and why we allow that. And then in terms of the journals, only tokens show up in the journals, and I'll show that later on. And only campaign assets, with those you have the option of making them static, that is, they can't be moved on the map. And you're probably thinking, why would you want a token that you can't move? I'll show you that in a second, or at least later on. And you can also choose to hide tooltips, so that when you wave your mouse over a campaign asset, no tooltips are shown. So there's a fair bit to take in here. It probably doesn't make much sense right now because you haven't seen any of the tokens in action, but it will do once I show you them. But at the end of the day, this is all in the manual, and you get the manual with Sojour, so all you need to do is click that button there, and you've got a ton of reading material to be going on with. So the first kind of tokens I'm going to talk about are your character ones, because they're generally the ones that you're going to be dealing with first. And we can cover a lot off on those and discuss a lot of features actually common to all three token types. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull in, I don't know, 2 characters, and we'll see how that goes. And for these 2 characters, I'm going to import them in directly from images I got off the internet. Although Sojour can create character tokens directly from your scenario PDFs, and I'll also show you that as well. So one thing I want to cover off first is how Sojour deals with token scaling, because one thing Sojour does is when you import an image to be used as a token, Sojour unifies their sizes, and that was a deliberate design decision because a lot of us, when we're doing our VTT role-playing stuff, we tend to source our art from all over the place, the internet, everywhere, and that's because many of us aren't artists, and we have to rely on other people's work. But that work comes in all shapes and sizes, quite literally. So, like these 2 tokens here, they look the same size in the file browser, but if you wave your mouse over them, you can actually see they're different physical sizes. So Isla's 236 by 236, and Stefan is 575. So that they're quite different physical sizes. That's Isla. I wonder if this will show you one-to-one. Yeah, there you go. So these two tokens are being shown in their actual size as they are images on the hard drive, and as you can see, Isla is a lot smaller. But what Sojour will do, it automatically resizes these tokens so they're all the same size. There is a mechanism to allow you to alter the size, and we'll talk about that later on. But in essence, as a player or user of Sojour, you don't need to worry about the image sizes you're importing in. Of course, be reasonable. You don't want to import a character token that's like 200 megabytes or something, so be reasonable. But on the other hand, you don't necessarily need to worry about token sizes. You don't have to go into your favorite image editor and make sure all the tokens are the same size, because Sojour will do that for you, and I'll show you that right now. So let's pull these two in, and you'll see what I mean about its auto scaling feature. So, in fact, before we do that, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Characters are kind of special insofar as you can associate a particular document template with them called a character sheet. And the idea being that whenever you add a character to Sojour, it automatically gets that character sheet. So let's do that now. Now, documents and templates, they're gonna have their own video basically. So I don't want to go too deeply into them, but there you go. That's the standard Mongoose one, character sheet. So we'll call that character sheet. But what a template is when you import documents into Sojour to act as templates, they can then be reused. So you create copies of these templates, and there's a little drop-down list where you can pick which particular document template you want to use, and away you go. I'll have a whole new video on that because there's a lot you can do with templates. But either way, we're creating a whole new template here called character sheet. And what we're going to do is, this is just a normal document template right now, but what we're going to do is mark it as being a character sheet by clicking set character sheet to Traveler's character sheet. So click that, and a little star appears on there. And what that means is whenever we create a character, it's going to get one of these document templates for free. So let's go do that now. Let's put in the two images that we saw. And remember, the two tokens we looked at were quite different sizes, but let's see how they look on the map. So we go Arla, add picture, pull her in. Yeah, she is. We'll give her some characteristics, some random traveler type characteristics. And I think that's all we need to do. I notice she comes with a character sheet. That got pulled in because we designated this as the default sheet for this. Plus you can add notes here. So that's Isla. And note for these kind of tokens and the characters, they appear up here as well. So all the main characters appear up here. Now, one thing I would say about characters is, in terms of design, I actually designed it so that it's not just player characters, but also all your major characters from your campaign will appear here. Because in my mind, when you're soloing a game, there's no real distinction between NPCs and characters, simply because you're playing them all. It's not like you have a separate person playing them. So I recommend, if you have any major campaign personalities, you put them up here. And they won't all necessarily show on this bar because you can deactivate them, and I'll show you that later on. So we've added Arla. Let's add the other chap. I forgot his names. Stefan. Let's call him Stefan. Give him again some characteristics. And then he's ready to go. So we know when we looked at the originating data that these two images are really different in size. He's that big and she's that big. She's a lot smaller. Yet on here they appear the same size, and also when we drag them to the map, they will both appear to be the same size. Because Sojour automatically sizes all your tokens to be a standard size, and that just saves you hassles. It means you can use a variety of sources for your art and not necessarily have to worry about the token sizes, because Sojour is automatically dealing with that for you. Now you're probably thinking, but what if I want different sizes? Well, you can tweak that, and I'll show you that later on. We won't do it with these two, but I will show it with a different kind. But basically, every token in Sojour has a thing called relative size, and you can set that to a value. It's basically a multiplier. So if I set that to 2, Arlo would be 2 times the size of Stefan. And it's great, you know, if you've got a big thing like a spaceship or a dragon, you might make that huge. Or if it's a tiny thing, you can go, you know, like make it 0.25, and then it's like a quarter of the size of a standard token. But the point is that everything is based on this standard token size. And you, as a user, don't need to worry about your source image sizes. Sojour handles it all for you. So I guess the next question you might have is, what determines the token size on the map? And that's a pretty good question. So basically, for unscaled maps, which this is, because we just pulled in an image and Sojour has literally no idea how big this is, Sojour will take a guess, and this is its guess of what it thinks is a good size for a character. But we can scale the map, so let's do that now. And travels in meters. Now this one doesn't actually come with a scale. Yeah, there's no scale on that, so we're going to have to kind of invent things. And I like to use standard things like doorways, because doorways tend to be fairly standard. What do we reckon? 1.5 meters for a doorway? Yeah, that's probably about right. So let's make that 1.5 meters. Red, that's going to be what the various annotations are going to look like colour-wise. And let's register the scale. And I reckon this doorway, like I say, is going to be about, let's zoom in a bit more. I reckon it's going to be about 1.5 meters there. There we go. So Sojour reckons this map is 204 meters by 173. That's fine. If you click next, you get the chance to actually pick your token sizes here, but I'm not. I'm going to let Sojour automatically determine that for us by leaving that ticked. So Sojour's thinking, for this particular map, you're better off having tokens of 1.5 meters. Let's do that. Hit finish. And just so happens that 1.5 is the default size it gave anyway, so you didn't see any real changes there. So Sojour will automatically pick the size of a character's tokens for a map, and in general, for smaller maps like this, they'll kind of be around the 1.5 meter size range. But as your maps get bigger, say they represent several kilometers, Sojour will increase the size of your tokens so they're still visible, because the last thing you want is a token that's 1.5 meters wide on a 100 kilometer map, because you'll never see the token. It'll be a tiny little dot unless you zoom in. So, so Sojour automatically increases or decreases the size. However, it's acknowledged that you might import a map that's got hexagons on it or a square grid on it, and although in my experience Sojour's been pretty good, generally speaking, I've not had to fiddle with its token sizes because it creates ones that do fit the grids really well. But if for some reason you dislike the basic size it's given you, there are several ways around this. We'll show you the map way first. So what I can do is go back to map registration again. This remembers all your settings, so it already remembers the map size. You don't have to re-register that. In here we can turn off token auto sizing, and we can choose to create our own size of token. And all you do is click this button here, all your tokens disappear, and you get given this scale me token. And the idea is you can move it where you want it, and then you use the mouse wheel to size it just how you want. So maybe you want our tokens to be that big, and when you're happy, click here to accept token size, and lo and behold, all of the tokens on that map have been increased to a size of 3.15 meters. And anytime you drag a token to this map, it's going to have that size. So you do have control over how your tokens look on the map in terms of sizing. You can either go with the default or invent your own sizes. In addition, you can override the sizes anyway just by using the mouse wheel. So and they're remembered on a per map basis. So you do have the optional auto size, and of course if you delete it and then redrag, you'll get the default size. And of course if you decide you want to go back to auto, again pull up the map scale assistant, tick auto, and then you're back to 1.5 meters. So a few things to note about characters, and this applies to nearly all tokens. Sojour has a thing, and you saw it just now with a little red ring. Whenever you wave your mouse over one of these character portraits, either here or in the journals, Sojour will center the map on that character, and you see a little red ring. So if we move the map out of the way, if we wave this mouse over Isla top left, watch what happens. See, it centers straight on over the little red ring. And the same with Stefan, and it's an easy way. If you want to find a character on your map, wave your mouse over and bingo, Sojour will take you straight there. Of course it's got a 3D view as well, if you want to use that as well. So what about these characteristics that we defined? Well, you can adjust those very simply, and there's two ways. You can either do it directly on the up here, or you can do it actually on the map itself. And what you're looking for, if you're going to do it on the map, is normally on the map you have a crosshair for your cursor, but if you put your crosshair directly over any one of these bars, it turns into those up and down arrows. And when it's an up and down arrow, you can use various shortcut keys. So mouse wheel on its own is the left one. Control's the middle one with mouse wheel, and shift is that one with mouse wheel, and control shift will do a fourth bar if you have a fourth bar. But you can also adjust them up here as well, so by same kind of thing, mouse wheel, shift, control, and so forth. And that's how you keep track of characteristics. And in the case of these people, we've set them up so that all three affect mortality, so all three need to be 0 for the character to be considered dead. So let's do that now just to show what happens there. Bang, and they disappeared. Now you can carry on taking away hit points if you wish, because a lot of role-playing games let you do that. I noticed that once Sojour believes they're dead, they get taken off the map. Though they are still there, you can still center on it. Now that is an option though. If you want your dead tokens to be visible, you just untick that, and they come back. That's completely up to you. I like to play with them hidden, basically, and then if they somehow get resurrected, you give them some health, and away they go. They're back on the map again. And everything, both monsters and these, for anything, any kind of token in Sojour can be given these characteristics. And if we open up Isla, you can see she's using the characteristics from a set called characteristics, but there's nothing stopping you adding another set of characteristics, maybe for a starship. I'll show you that later on. Like I said, I don't want to go too deep into this because there is a whole video on characteristics, basically. So I guess the key point I want you to take away from characters and tokens in general is the concept of scaling. The fact that your source images can be a variety of sizes, and Sojour doesn't care. It will automatically scale them and unify them, so you don't need to worry about that. And I've found that to be a great time saver, because it means you can go all over the internet, find all of the art that you like, and not worry about the sizes. Let Sojour do all the sizing for you. So far we've added 2 tokens, character tokens that is, using normal images. The Sojour has a trick up its sleeve. It can actually create tokens directly from your scenario PDFs, and I'll show you that now. So let's pull up our PDF, Mission to Mithril. And here's a chap who's in this particular adventure, Eric Bothilder, and we're going to create a character token for use in Sojour using Sojour's built-in import tools. So all you need to do, same kind of thing, right click, add character, Eric Bothilder, I'm guessing. My spelling will probably be bad, but that's close enough for government work. All you need to do in order to take advantage of the screenshot functionality is make sure your picture's up, don't worry about Sojour being in the way, because Sojour will hide itself. And all you need to do is add picture, but use the camera one rather than the file one. So do that. And Sojour hides itself, and all you need to do is draw a square around here. And I generally tend to find that the more square you can make your square, the better these tokens tend to be. So let's go do that now. About there. I think that's going to make an excellent token. And there you go. Now, but one thing you'll notice with Eric, we could leave him like that and use him as our character, but there's a few issues. Firstly, he's got a square background, which I don't know, you might like that, you might not. And by the way, the reason why he doesn't have any health bars is because I haven't set his up. One of the things Sojour does is if there's 0, you don't get them. You might say, you know, if I put in like 5 for strength, he'll suddenly have 1 bar and so forth. And of course, if we were to drag into the map, again, he's a bit square on there as well. So yeah, it doesn't quite fit. But Sojour does provide tools to enable you to turn Eric into a circular token. The problem is that because of the way Sojour imports images, you can't do it after the fact. So the framing options are all disabled, as is pic transparency. So I'd have to delete Eric and re-import him because you can only do it up front prior to import. Now, this is a limitation in the current version of Sojour, but it is something I will be looking at because I want to overhaul how portraits are imported, because I have a few really good ideas. And for those that are being with Sojour right from the beginning, I keep adding things to it and incrementally improving it, and you get all that for free. The way I look at it, if you paid your $10, you deserve support, so you get all of this stuff for free. And I basically, I'm from the school of iterative development. I will give you new functionality, but I'll also iterate functionality that's already there. And you can consider this like the first version, but I do have other ideas. But anyway, right now, if we want to give him a circular frame, we'll have to delete him and re-import him, because this is something you need to do up front, unfortunately, at least for the moment. So let's remove him and we'll re-import him again. So let's make sure he's still up in the background. Yeah, cool. Let's grab Sojour and let's add him. Eric Bothelder. I think that's how it's spelled. Again, add from screenshot, and again, you want to try and make these as square as possible. So I always find you get the best results that way. There you go. And now, because Sojour hasn't imported him yet, because I haven't hit OK, we get the option of picking transparencies. Now, what transparency does, it enables you to pick a particular color, and then Sojour will set it to transparent. In his case, it's not really worthwhile because he's got this hexagonal background. But what we can do is give him a nice circular frame, and you get a choice of lots of different colors. So I don't know, let's give him purple. Yeah, let's give him a purple frame. And there you go. So now when we hit OK, he comes with this freebie frame, and we can make him look like the others by giving him some characteristics. Let's give him some random characteristics. And then in real life, you'd look at the PDF and copy them from there. And now when you drag him, there you go. He's now a proper token. And that was directly from the scenario PDFs. No real effort at all. And notes exactly the same size as the others, because everything in Sojour is properly scaled. And that's a great feature, because it means, as I say, one of the cornerstones of Sojour is it's designed for people that have bought the books and the PDFs, but then want to do solo role-playing without necessarily having to buy them again. And this is why I provide you with all these tools. Okay, I mentioned earlier that for characters, the idea being is, at least for Sojour's design, all of the characters in your campaign would be under the characters tab, friend or foe alike. That's because in a solo game you're playing both basically to the best of your ability. But during early testing I realised, oh my, we got a problem, and that is, as your campaign progresses, you end up with more and more characters here, and this top bar just fills up and it gets in the way basically. So what Sojour allows you to do is to temporarily deactivate a character. So say we're playing Mission to Mithril, say Stefan was in there early on in the campaigns, or maybe on the other planets, but he's not on this particular planet, you can choose to deactivate him. You can either do it either here or up here, just by right clicking and selecting deactivate. And when they're deactivated, he gets removed from here, gets removed from the map, and it just clears that space, and he appears under the deactivated characters folder. So the idea is all the characters that aren't currently active in your campaign, I recommend you deactivate them, and that way it keeps this bar up here nice and clean for you. And of course, when you eventually get to a part of your campaign when Stefan is going to be used, you right click and reactivate it, and he'll appear, and he'll also appear on any of the maps where you last left him, because Sojour remembers all this between instances. So yeah, that's one thing that characters can do which none of the other tokens can do, and that is you can activate or deactivate them, and that way you can keep only the ones you're interested in active, so that when you're role playing you're concentrating on just those characters, and it can be activated and deactivated at any point in time. Now you're probably thinking, okay, so I've imported these characters and I even created a token. Well, where does all this data end up? Does it go to database? Where does it go? Well, Sojour has a concept of keeping your data in a non-proprietary format wherever possible, and it lets you view it. And all you need to do is pick the kind of asset you're interested in. We're interested in tokens here. Right click, and there's a little thing here called Browse Folder. Click that, and that'll take you straight to the folder with your icons. So like we created this one here directly from the scenario PDF, and when you double click him, if we open him in Photos, you can see it's just a normal picture, and you can go use him in any other RPG tools that you have. So yeah, one of the cornerstones of Sojour is I don't want to put your data in a proprietary format. I want you to have it available, and I want you to be able to use it in other tools, hence why I do this. So yeah, if you ever feel that you want to use any of the data you've entered into Sojour in any of your other tools, generally speaking, most of these folders you can right click on it and go browse to folder, and it will take you straight there. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Okay, so we've talked a lot about character type tokens, and I think I've covered everything I want to on those. If you want to know more, Sojour's manual, it's got a lot of information in it, and you can always find it in there. And hopefully some users of Sojour might create their own videos, who knows. But anyway, we're going to talk about the next kind of token, which I actually call tokens just to really confuse things. And these go in what I call the token palette. So what are these, and what's the difference between these and character tokens? Well, in my mind, I figured that in most role-playing game systems, you're going to have what I call the mobs, the monsters, or the creatures, basically. And irrespective of which particular adventure you're playing at the time, there's going to be this common set of monster that you might use time and time again. A great example being in Dungeons and Dragons, you have orcs and goblins. Very, very common. The idea with tokens as opposed to character tokens is that your orcs and goblins would go in this tokens palette, which is at rule set level, because like I said, those creatures tend to be available across all scenarios. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a token just so you can see all the differences between a token on a token palette and a character. And once again, we're going to be using one directly from Mongoose's Mission to Mithril. We're going to be taking this chap in, Calamander, so let's pull him in. Zoom that in a bit. So let's pull him in. So you open up the tokens palette, click add, give it a name. And notice this dialogue is very similar. Calamander. In fact, and you'll find that this dialogue is very much the same for all three types of token. There are some subtle differences though, and we'll talk about those as we go along. So again, we're going to use Sojour's ability to take pictures and screenshots. Have I spelled that right? Calamander? It kind of looks my spelling's atrocious. Let's have a look. It should be an A. there you go. I'm bad. Right, there you go. Right, so properly spelt Calamander. We hit from screenshots. And again, as I said earlier, you want to try and make these as square as possible for the best results. And I guess that's about there. And we'll give him a nice frame. Because he's a lizard, we'll go for green. And let's talk about characteristics. So in Traveller, monsters don't have strength, dex, and endurance. They actually have hits instead. So what Sojour allows you to do is create a whole new set of characteristics, especially for creatures. And we'll do that now. So what you do is click this button here and add a new characteristic set. We'll call some creatures. And creatures have a single characteristic called hits. Let's just call it HTS. And in fact, it's only one that is short of the full thing. Might as well type the whole thing. Leave it green, and it does affect mortality. If it goes to 0, they're dead. And we're okay with that. So now when we go back to the Calamander, we can actually pick the creature type thing. So now he has a completely different set of characteristics from the player characters. And that's one of the great features of Sojour, the fact that you can have custom characteristics for each type of token. And in this case, it's just standard Traveller creatures. Now there is a difference between tokens and I guess player characters, and that is in tokens you can assign a value, which is great. So in this case I put 6 in for hits, and what that means is every time I drag a Calamander to the map, they're all going to get 6 hits. However, you might want to randomize that. So what Sojour allows you to do for tokens, and only tokens, is you can put a dice expression in here. And you can go as simple or as complicated as you want. So for example, let's go, I don't know, 2D. And note it goes red when it's not a correct expression, and the OK button's disabled. So but let's go 2D6, I don't know, plus 1D4. Yeah. Right, that's crazy. So what that will do, every time this token gets dragged to the map, Sojour will roll these dice and allocate those hits to that particular monster, and I'll show you that in a second. And you can only do this for tokens, you cannot do that with characters. And the reason why is because tokens you can drag to the map multiple times, as I'll show you in a second, whereas characters you can't. Characters are singular. So we've created our Calamander, he's now in the token palette. And now watch this. Unlike a character, if we drag him to the map, we can drag him multiple times. And note, his status bar has got nothing in it until I drop him, and then when I drop him, it's rolled. And as you see, that one's got, we get that in focus, he's got 9, he's got, they both count with 9? Is that, are they all going to be 9? 5. Okay, it's just the the dice roller on the computer is a bit dodgy. Yeah, it does roll the dice. I see 2 9s and 1 5. So that's one of the big differences. And I see Sojour's automatically named them. So that's Calamander 1, Calamander 2, and Calamander 3. But there's a few other things we can do, and I'm actually going to get rid of these now because I want to create a new generation of them that are a different size. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about sizes. So as I mentioned earlier, Sojour will unify all the sizes of your token images regardless of source. But you might not want that for everything. So I don't know, say these lizards are actually quite big. How would we make them bigger on the map? Well, we can use this relative size value. And it's a multiplier basically. So if we want them to be 1.5 times bigger than the standard token, you just up this value to 1.5. Or you can make it smaller, you can make it like 0.5. But we'll make him bigger, 1.5 times bigger. So now, whenever I drag him to the map, you get a bigger version. So it kind of almost looks instantly more intimidating for your game. And I say, because it's a token, you get multiple versions. That's Calamander 2 of 14, Calamander 1 with 10 hits, and Calamander 3 with 11 hits. And of course you can manage all their hit points from here. So that is the primary difference. The fact that with monsters in the tokens palette, they're multi-instanced, whereas characters, as I showed earlier, if I was to drag Isla to the map again, all that happens is Isla moves, and that's because there's only one Isla, and there's not multiple ones of them. And there is yet another difference between the two, and that's to do with journals. So I'm going to very quickly create a quick journal. Let's call it Mission to Mithril. And the difference is that when you open up a journal, all of the creature type mobs appear on this NPC bar here. And this bar here acts pretty similar to your characters, as far as when you hover over it, Sojour centers it. So Arla, Eric, Stefan, and then our mobs here, 1, 2, and 3. So very similar in that respect. And you can alter the hit points from here as well, as from the map. It's just like characters, you've got 2 places to do it. And you're probably thinking, so why Sojour done this? Why has it added these tokens to the journal? Well, that's all to do with another thing you can do with Sojour, is you can get your tokens, I guess, to talk in the journal. And the way you normally do it for normal characters, you basically press the control key. And what you'll find when you press control is these numbers appear over the portraits, 1, 2, and 3. And that's telling you the number you need to press in order to have them talk. So, you know, we can add Arlo to the conversation, Eric, Stefan. Maybe we don't want Stefan in there, so we can take him out. And then we go, hello, all. Whoops. And then use speech marks to close it. And the whole reason why the monsters are here is because you can do the same thing with those. But I think it's Control Shift's been a while since I've done this. And then you go 1, 2. And you can mix it. So we've got Calamander 1 and 2 talking, and maybe we'll add Arla in there as well with Control 1. Highly unlikely that they're all going to do that. And I can't imagine any lizards saying howdy, but you can do that. And that's why they appear here, to enable you to initiate conversation. However, there are other ways to initiate conversation in that I think you can shift click. Speaking of which, I'm giving you lots of shortcuts right now, and even me, the creator, Sojour, I sometimes forget them. And every pane comes with its own little helper thing. You can actually pull that up, and it's a modeless window, so you can carry on working with it up and use that as like an aid memoir. So on here, there should be a little thing on here telling you what's required to get these to talk, basically. So let's have a quick look. Size, move. There's so many things you can do your characters here. Here you go. So it's saying, yeah, I was right. Control Shift, left click to get your characters to talk. And the reason for that is the downside with the Control and the Shift method is obviously numerals, as far as I'm concerned, on this only go up to 9. So if you have more than 9 characters or 9 monsters and you want the 10th one to talk, you're kind of stuck unless you use the map way. And the map way is you press Control Shift and you just click and they appear in here. And you can add more to the conversation or take them away by clicking again and then again going. Maybe they go grrr instead. So that's the other difference. Tokens appear here in the journal, whereas normal characters appear up here, and that's and this is based on the currently displayed map. So whichever map you have on the right determines what tokens are shown here. So I think that's why I want to talk about the differences between tokens and characters. So there are subtle differences, as the big one being only one character, whereas with tokens you can just keep dragging them. And also the other difference, as I showed, was with a token you can put in a dice expression for the hits. And you can't use dice expressions in Arla because it makes no sense. After all, why would you want a character to have characteristics that change every time you drag them to the map? That just doesn't make sense. Whereas because these tokens in the palette, because they could be multiple instances, it makes sense for them to have the ability to be able to roll dice, as we've seen here. So that's those two. We've only got one more thing left to talk about tokens wise, and that's the third kind of token, and that is campaign assets. And you're probably thinking right now, so okay, what is a campaign asset? Well, why have you invented a third category of token? What's the point? The idea is I thought, okay, you've got your mobs under the token palette, you've got your characters, but what about the other things you want to show on the map? You know, there are categories of items that you put on the map which aren't necessarily a monster or a character. Great examples of that might be for Traveller, it might be your starship, and I'll show you that in a second. Or alternatively, maybe it's a discovered map feature. Again, like maybe a cave. So that's a great thing that would make a campaign asset. It's neither a character or a monster. So to illustrate that and to illustrate some of the other features of the importer, we're going to import a starship into this. Just to make this a little bit more complete, I guess. So I say it's a campaign asset simply because starships aren't tokens per se, and they're probably not characters, although in some games you could make them a character because, you know, that some games have sentient ships, and that's your call. Sojour's not going to be able to look at your token and go, ha, that's a starship. I'm not letting you pull that into characters. You can pull starships in wherever you want. It's just that the original intent is that they go into campaign assets. So let's add this starship. So what we're going to call it, I'll just call it Starship. I can't think of a name right now. Terrible with names. In fact, no, let's call it let's give it a Greek name like the Pallas Athene. Cool. Right, so we're going to add a picture, and we're not going to do it from screenshot this time. We're going to actually add a proper picture. And this is one I got off the internet, although I've modified it because I want to show you a few things. So here's our starship, and you'll notice that there's quite a lot of differences between a campaign asset and a normal character. It's got all these extra parameters here. So you got unique, show tooltip, all this other kind of stuff. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention with tokens as well is tokens, just like characters, you can associate a document with them. Right now it's only one document, and it can either be a pre-made document or you can add an RTF. But yeah, it's only one at the moment, and maybe I'll add one to this, I don't know yet. But it enables you to associate documents. One of my future enhancements is to allow you to add multiple documents, basically. So we won't bother with characteristics, though you could create a whole new characteristic set, and I think for Traveller, starships would have hull points, but I'm not going to bother with that for this. And yeah, let's pull it in. So is it unique? Yes, because we only want to have one starship. So by having is unique ticks, it means every time I drag it to the map, it will move on the map as opposed to giving you lots of different starships. Show tooltip, that means, is it going to tell me it's the Pallas Athene? Will I wave over it? Yes. And static, do we want it so it can't be moved on the map? Now this one we want to move it, so let's go for it. Now if you were to just okay that, you would probably be a little bit disappointed because when you drag it to the map, and this is the only way you can drag it to the map is from here, is there's a few issues. Firstly, it's got a white background, so it looks a little bit unsightly. And secondly, it's not exactly to scale, is it? Yeah, so that's pretty bad. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the downsides to Sojour right now is that after you import something, a lot of the framing and transparency stuff becomes disabled because of the way the imports work. That is something I'm going to change, so we're going to need to redo that. Let's remove that. And let's re-add it properly this time. We'll give it the same name, Pallas Athene, and add from picture. The only difference is this time we're going to set a transparency on it. All you need to do is click the pick transparency. I'll give you a little crosshair, and then you click a color on the image that you want to make transparent. Right now Sojour only supports setting one color only, but I want to add the concept of masks as well, but that's not in this version right now. So we're going to make this white transparent by clicking on it. You can see the color there matches that. We'll leave, we'll change relative size as well also here. So you want your starship to be big, generally speaking, but how big? We're going to go 10 times. Let's go 10 times. That might not work out the way we want it to, but let's see how it goes. So we're going to make it 10 times bigger than a person, and we've given it a transparent background. Let's see how this works out. Let's zoom out, 'cause it's going to be big. So yeah, oh yeah, that's big. And then you just drop it on the map. And as you see, it's now got a transparent background. You can move it around, and you can rotate it. That's the other thing with tokens I forgot to tell you about, is if you use the control button and your mouse wheel over it, you can rotate it any way you want. And it's the same with the normal characters as well. You can rotate those if you wish and drag them away sideways. And the same with normal tokens. You can have them in any orientation that you like. And Sojour remembers this. So the starship's now looking a little bit more like a starship. And that's kind of what I envisaged campaign assets to be. But the other big use for them is for terrain features. And I'll cover that off next. So for a terrain feature, we're going to get a larger size map, and I think I've shown you a similar demo in one of my other videos as well. So you'll be able to, you've probably seen this before if you've watched the other videos. So we're going to import a map, again from Mongoose Travelers Missions Myth. We're going to import this one here, so make sure it's visible, and go to maps. What is that map? That is... They give it a name. They just call it the overland map. We'll call it the overland map. So let's pull that in. Again for the screenshot, and you draw your little rectangle around it. Give it a name. Overland map. There you go, and we'll scale it 50 kilometers per hex. Let's set that up now. So we want kilometers 50. You can type in this if you wish, if you don't want any of the preset numbers. Yeah, red's good. And let's scale that up. And we'll say it's across here. I don't know why I'm being so exact. There's no need to be. I do. Right, so wow, that's 2,290 kilometers by 1,400. I'm going to leave the token size the normal size. So we've got a nice little scale on there, and what we're going to do, I mean, you can drag your characters to here as well. I notice the default scaling Sojour's given them is fine. Of course, if I move them there, that's a 50 kilometer move. That's the other thing I guess I haven't mentioned, but you'll see it on both maps. Whenever you drag a token, and it could be any kind of token, provided the map is scaled, you'll see how far you're moving it. So there, it's going to be 56 kilometers. If it goes to the other map, where we're scaled in meters, so if I move Eric to here, he's about to move 4.65 meters. Now, I did have a customer contact me yesterday about the possibility of adding waypoints, and I've agreed with him. I want to add waypoints, and this actually uses Ancient Armies technology, another project of mine, and that does have waypoints, so I'll probably just steal code from there and pop that into Sojour. And I want to integrate those waypoints with turn sequences. The turn sequences, whole nother video. So the key thing to remember is, if your map is scaled, and only if it's scaled, whenever you move your token, you get a little tooltip telling you how far they're going to go. 5.51. So going back to our overland map, we're going to create a campaign asset to represent, I don't know, some caves you might have found. So let's go do that now. So add campaign asset. Let's call it caves. Leave the relative size as 1. Add it from picture. I've got a nice picture of a cave there for something I got off the internet. So because we want to make this a terrain feature, there's a few things we want to do. Firstly, I don't necessarily want it to be unique, because, you know, you might discover loads of caves. So let's turn that off. And do I want tooltips? Yeah, we'll leave tooltips on. But I want to make it static, because if I discover a cave in this hex, I don't want it to move, and it's very easy to accidentally drag things around, so we'll make it static. And this means that whenever I drag caves to the map, you can't move them. Now, if you make a mistake, if you've dragged it to the wrong place, you can either untick this, drag it to where you want it, and then retick it, or just delete it and redrag it. There's lots of ways around it. So it's these characteristics down here which make campaign assets a little bit unique. The fact that you can say, is it unique or not? Does it have tooltips? Is it static on the map? So let's say we've discovered some caves in this hex here. We can now drag a cave in, and it appears. And because I made it static, you can't drag it. And you know, maybe another cave got discovered further up here. You can drag that there as well. And for all intents and purposes, those caves, although they're tokens, they become part of the map, but they don't act like tokens. You can't drag them anywhere. They're just kind of there. Now, you're probably thinking, that tooltip's not very good. I mean, caves. But one great feature Sojour allows you to do is when you multi-instance a campaign asset, you get given the choice to give it an on-map unique name. So you can go and rename it just by right-clicking on it. So maybe this set of caves is called, let's call it the dig site. So now, when I wave my mouse cursor over it, it's the dig site. And you could do the same for that one as well. And you can also add map linking so that when you double click on it, it opens the map related to the dig site. But that's for the mapping video. And you can see a link to that top right now. So that's a really handy thing that you can use campaign assets for, and that's to, in effect, annotate your maps with discoveries. And because I've made it static, you can't move these. They become part of the map for all intents and purposes. So that's another great use for campaign assets. Right, let me have a think. Have I covered everything? So there is quite a lot to cover. One more thing. So all of these token types have one more feature which I've neglected to discuss, and that is a thing called direction stabilization, which sounds a bit of a mouthful, but it's really handy, and I'll show you that now. So what direction stabilization does is it enables the token to always face its direction of travel, and that's really handy for tokens that are top down. And we'll do that now. We'll import a top down token and we'll add this one to the tokens palette. And this is going to be a horse. This is an image I downloaded off the internet. So add a picture. There's our horse. Now you see it's a top down image, and horses, they're kind of big, aren't they? 2 times, 3 times. I never know, because I don't really know horses in real life. Let's go 2 times, that might be too big. And they're a creature, and maybe we'll give them, I don't know, 2d6. Right, so I'm not going to select direction stabilization right away, because I want to show you what it looks like with it off. So let's OK that. So we've got our horse. And by the way, this tokens palette, you can search for things. So if we just type in HO or C, yeah. So you can filter things. There is I do have some stories in to revamp this and give you a little bit more flexibility, but it's pretty flexible right now. So we've got a horse. We drag him onto the map. And the problem you have is, look what happens when you move them. They kind of look a little bit artificial. In fact, 2 times is really too small as well. I want them to be a bit bigger. We'll sort that out. But yeah, if you're moving on that, maybe you can handle them looking like this. But if you move to there, he's like going tail first, and it just doesn't look natural. And I'm guessing there are tokens out there that represent people as well in top down. So what we're going to do, let's increase his size again. Let's make him 3 times bigger. And we're going to direction stabilize him as well this time. So we're going to click the direction stabilized button. And when you do that, this dialog window comes up with a picture of your token. And the idea here is you click where the front is, or the nose. So the nose for us is here on the right. So I'm just going to click roughly there. And it's saying the heading's 91, but you can have another go. Maybe it's there. So you can keep doing it until you get it right. Yeah, 90 degrees, bang on. So we've now set a heading. So now look at the difference when we are dragging onto the map. He's a bit bigger now, so I made him 3 times bigger. So now, when I move him, watch what happens. He always faces the direction of travel, which is pretty cool. And I say very handy for the old top-down token. Not so good for the circular tokens. In fact, I think circular tokens look a bit odd when they're rotated. But for top-down tokens, it's a really good feature. And any token in Sojour, whether it's a character, a token, or a campaign asset, can be made direction stabilized. So that was the other feature. I think that's what I want to show you at the moment. All of these tokens have documents associated with them. Like I say, for characters, it's the character sheet, which I haven't filled out for any of them. For these ones, they don't have anything right now, but you can give them a particular document. So I don't know, let's do the starship. Let's go to the Pallas Athene. So what you can do, go to associated document, click add document, and you got a choice. You can either pick a document from the templates, and again, I'm gonna have a whole video on templates and things. Right now we only have character sheet available, and character sheet isn't really applicable to starship. Or you can browse to disk and actually pick a maybe you've downloaded a traveler's starship document. I haven't, but if you did, you can click from disk and download it that way. Or maybe just a blank RTF, rich text documents. Let's do that, and we'll just call it, I don't know, starship stats. That's a terrible name, but that'll do right now. Okay, that. So now this starship has some stats, and you can go. Now, Sojour's RTFs, you can do quite a lot with them in terms of like making bowls, changing colours, this, that, and the other. But right now they don't support pictures or tables. But because they are rich text, you can open up your favourite rich text editor, whether it's Microsoft Word or whatever, grab a document that has tables and pictures, and you can paste it in here. So you can get tables and things for free by creating the tables in other applications, just pasting it in here, but I'm not going to do that right now. And hit OK. And now what you'll find is when I right click on the Pallas Athene on the map, I can go and view its stats, which obviously I haven't put much in there right now, but you get the gist. All that could have been, like I said, the proper official PDFs. Or you can view it from, I believe, from here as well. No, not from there, funny enough. Maybe that should be a menu entry. I know you can for these ones here, but maybe I should add it for there. That sounds like a good idea, I think. Certainly view it from there. So that gives you a way of associating a document. And I say, right now, Sojour has the downside that only one document can be associated per token. That is something I intend to iterate on in the future, and I want to give you folks the ability to add as many documents as you want. But that's, again, a future enhancement. So I think I've covered everything. Oh, the only other thing, a very, very minor thing, in fact, let's go, let's make the map pretty big, is if you've got a load of tokens on your map like this and you think the status bars are getting in the way, there is a button up here that you can use to hide the characteristics, and that's on a per map basis, so each map remembers whether or not you've hidden the characteristics, so you can choose to have them on or off, completely up to you. So yeah, I guess that's all I want to show you. Pretty much covered everything you ever need to know about, I guess, tokens, the 3 different kinds. So very briefly, characters, they're your main characters in your campaign, both friend and foe, and they always appear up here. You have, and they're single use, so if you keep dragging them, all you do is move them on the map, you don't actually get multiple versions. Tokens in the token palette, they're multi-instance, so if you drag them, you get another one. Basically, you can keep, so you know, maybe you're overwhelmed like 100 goblins, just drag 100 of them on and away you go. And those, because you can put dice expressions in, which you can't for a standard character, that gets rolled every time it gets dragged to the map. And of course then you have your campaign assets, and that's for everything else. So for us, we've used our campaign assets to create this starship, and we've also used campaign assets on the overland map to create these nice caves, one of which we've called the dig site. So yeah, it's a handy feature. So that's it. Any questions, feel free to pop it down into the chat. Like I say, Sojour comes with a big manual, so generally speaking, you should be able to find what you want from here. It's got everything's linked, so you've got links you can click on, and right at the front there's a contents that you can click on, and you can search for things as well. So generally speaking, if you have any questions about characters that aren't necessarily covered in this video, it will generally be in this manual somewhere. So again, that's it. Let's say thank you for your interest in Sojour. And I say it's available on DriveThru. Only costs $10, and for that you get free updates. There's no DRM because I don't believe in that. I think DRM hurts legitimate buyers more than pirates, because the way I look at it, most pirates are really switched on and they're really good on the technical side, and I could spend a year creating the perfect DRM system, and a pirate would come along next day that they would have cracked it, and then I would have wasted my time, and you folks would have had major hassles dealing with the DRM system. So I just haven't included that. So yeah, it only costs $10. And by the way, on the video front, I'm kind of going blind here. I've thought, yeah, let's carry on these tutorial videos, but if there's any kind of video that you folks think I should be making, let me know in the comments, and then I can address putting a series of videos together to address whatever whatever concerns you want. But there are going to be a few more tutorials after this. I want to talk about documents, and I want to talk about tables and event tables, and turn sequences. And once all those are covered, we're kind of good to go on a tutorial front. Although I'm going to have to continually update the tutorials, because Sojour is continually updated with new features, and most of which are coming from you folks, the customer. You give me all these great ideas, and off I go. I go and add the code. But bear in mind, development can be slow on Sojour, because it's a one-man job. It's me coding it, and it's not my day job. I'm actually a web developer by trade, and that's quite an intensive job in of itself. So I say Sojour is very much a free time project, but it's in a pretty good state right now. And if you look at the reviews or even watch some of the videos, you can see it's pretty good value for money. So anyway, that's what I want to talk about. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and goodbye.